The monitors had stopped arguing with time, settling into a slow, uneven rhythm that felt more like a goodbye than a fight. Blood soaked through the sheets beneath the motionless body of the Navy SEAL sniper, and the trauma bay smelled of antiseptic and metal in the quiet panic no one wanted to name. Doctors had tried everything they could reach with hands and medicine, but the wounds were too deep, too scattered, as if war itself had followed him home and refused to let go. His chest rose with effort, each breath borrowed, and the clock on the wall seemed to lean closer, waiting. In that moment, when hope thinned to a fragile thread, no doctor could reach the dying SEAL sniper, and no protocol could explain what was about to happen next. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unseen bonds that keep us alive, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this belong to all of us. His name was Daniel Carter, though very few people had called him that for years. In the world he came from, names were earned again and again, and his had been reshaped by deserts and mountains, by nights where silence screamed louder than gunfire. He had been airlifted from a training accident that went wrong in a way no report could soften. The blast had torn through muscle and memory, leaving his body battered and his mind drifting between here and somewhere far away. The doctors saw injuries, numbers, probabilities. They saw a man slipping beyond their reach. What they did not see was the weight of the lives he had carried on his back, or the promise he had once made to come home no matter the cost. Outside the trauma bay, the hospital moved like any other, carts rolling, phones ringing, life insisting on continuing. Inside, time bent. Daniel's heart stuttered, then steadied, then faltered again, as if unsure whether it still belonged to this world. The team worked with grim focus, sweat on brows, hands steady even as hope thinned. They spoke in measured tones about options that were running out, about damage too extensive to reverse. It was not failure that filled the room, but helplessness, the kind that settles when skill meets a wall it cannot climb. That was when Emily Rhodes passed the doorway. She was a nurse who had learned to read the air of a room before she read charts, a quiet observer who noticed the way suffering left fingerprints everywhere. She had not been assigned to the trauma bay that night, but something pulled her toward it, a pressure behind the sternum that made her slow her steps. She glanced at the board, saw the name, the rank, the brief notes scribbled too fast. Then she felt it, a memory brushing against the present, faint but insistent. Emily had grown up near a base, the kind of town where uniforms blended into the landscape and goodbyes were a language children learned early. Years ago, she had volunteered at a rehabilitation center for wounded veterans, helping with long nights when pain felt endless and sleep felt impossible. She remembered sitting beside a young sniper once, a man who refused to speak but responded to one thing, a call sign spoken softly when nightmares dragged him under. It was a strange thing to remember now, but the feeling would not leave her. She stepped closer, watching Daniel's face, the way his brow tightened even as consciousness slipped. The monitors told one story, but his body told another. His lips moved, barely, and though no sound came, the shape of the words stirred something in her chest. She leaned in, not as a nurse following orders, but as a human listening for a heartbeat beneath the noise. The call sign surfaced in her mind like a flare in the dark, something she had not thought of in years yet knew was right. No one asked her to speak. No one told her not to. She simply did, letting the call sign roll from her mouth with the weight of understanding behind it, not loud, not urgent, but steady, the way it had been used in moments when lives balanced on a knife edge. The effect was subtle at first, a change so small it could have been dismissed as coincidence. Then Daniel's breathing shifted, deeper, more deliberate. His fingers twitched, not in reflex but in response, as if a part of him had heard and decided to answer. The room changed. The doctors noticed the monitors adjusting, numbers inching in a direction they had not expected. They adjusted their approach, following the opening that had appeared without explanation. Emily stayed where she was, repeating the call sign at intervals, anchoring him to something familiar, something that meant safety and identity beyond the pain. She did not know why it worked, only that it did, and in that moment, knowing was enough. As minutes stretched, Daniel's body fought in a way it had not before. The bleeding slowed just enough for intervention to matter. His heart steadied, not strong, but present, insisting on one more chance. The team moved with renewed purpose, not hopeful exactly, but no longer resigned. Emily felt tears blur her vision, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming sense that something fragile and beautiful was happening in the middle of chaos. The surgery that followed was long and uncertain, a battle measured in millimeters and seconds. Emily waited outside, hands clasped, replaying the moment again and again, wondering if she had imagined the connection, if exhaustion had dressed coincidence as miracle. Hours later, when the surgeon emerged with eyes tired but brightened by disbelief, the truth settled in. Daniel had survived the night. He was not safe yet, but he was here. Recovery was not a straight line. Daniel drifted in and out, body healing faster than memory. When he finally opened his eyes with intention, Emily was there, checking vitals, adjusting lines, doing the quiet work that held healing together. Recognition came slowly, not of faces, but of sounds, of that call sign echoing from somewhere deep. His grip tightened around her fingers, weak but deliberate, a thank you spoken without words. In the weeks that followed, Daniel learned what had happened in fragments, piecing together the story of a night he could not fully remember. He learned that medicine had carried him to the edge, but something else had pulled him back. Emily never claimed credit. She spoke of listening, of paying attention, of the way humans sometimes reach where tools cannot. Daniel carried the knowledge differently. For him, it was proof that even when the world reduced him to injuries and odds, someone had seen the whole of him and called him back by the name that mattered most. When Daniel eventually left the hospital, scars marking his body and humility marking his stride, he did not leave unchanged. He volunteered, spoke quietly to others learning to live again, reminding them that being reached did not always look the way they expected. Emily continued her work, a little more certain now that compassion was not an accessory to care, but its core. Years later, the story would be told in fragments online, passed along by people hungry for proof that kindness still mattered. If this story reached you, if it stirred something in your chest or reminded you of someone you refused to give up on, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video, because engagement is how stories like this keep breathing. And before this story ends, leave a comment telling us what this moment meant to you or who it reminded you of. Somewhere between a call sign whispered into the dark and a heartbeat choosing to continue, life was returned to itself. Not by force, not by certainty, but by recognition. And if that truth touched your heart, let this video know you were here, because every signal of connection matters more than we realize.